Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to introduce my today's show, Mr. Charpentier, who is often visit our virtual studio to participate in our daily show. Good evening, Mr. Charpentier. I'm very happy to see you again.
Hello, Mr. Kacin. Thank you for having me again.
Mr. Charpentier, so let's talk about the current situation in Europe and the United States in particular. But let's start with candidate status. As far as you know, that Ukraine last week obtained a candidate status, and now Ukraine is officially recognized as a candidate to join European Union. For Ukrainians, this is a really big deal because Ukrainians actually they were promoting European Union choice for Ukraine, and now the dreams came true. So Ukraine became a candidate for joining European Union. So basically, Ukraine now is much closer to European Union than it used to be. So how you, as a US citizen, can assess this achievement, which actually Ukraine got last week?
I think it's an important symbolic gesture. It also shows that Ukraine's going in the right direction. And I think Putin. It's not the direction Putin wanted, obviously, and I think that his contention, before the war and even now was to steer Ukraine away from NATO. So I think everything that also, the European Union, and it's also made the European Union stronger, NATO stronger, and our former president before thought that these were outdated, organizations of the West, and so this war has proved that they're still very important organizations.
Mr. Charpentier, you always addressed very stylish. If I didn't knew that you are a novelist, I would definitely think that you are the CEO of one US major banks. So my next question will be about investments. Will this new status for Ukraine can bring investments to Ukraine, bearing in mind that now Ukraine probably is going to join European Union in the nearest future? It means that the credentials of Ukraine will be boosted, and obviously Ukraine potentially represent a very big interest towards investors. So will investors from the United States be interested in investing in Ukraine in new circumstances?
I really think so, because I think that it's good branding for a lot of companies, right? Because it's the popular and right thing to do, right? Is to support Ukraine in any way that you can. So I definitely think that they will, and I think that one of the reasons they didn't before is that it wasn't part of the, Ukraine's not part of the EU. But another thing is I think a lot of countries and companies had a problem with Ukraine's corruption, but I think that will change, and I also think that Ukraine's image has changed drastically.
Probably heard that last week there was a meeting summoned in Germany, where members of the J7 they came to discuss challenges which now the world faces, especially Russian invasion into Ukraine, and world leaders they were joking of Mr. Putin. So probably heard about this, and it seems that the world leaders now they became very skeptical about Putin, and it seems they now are very serious in terms of terminating all relations with Putin, and they're looking forward to have relations with a new president who will substitute Putin in a presidential office. So you live in the United States. So do you now feel that U.S. elite is ready to take bold steps against Mr. Putin?
Who do you mean by elites?
I mean, ruling elite, so political parties, political establishment, all people who are involved in U.S. governments.
Do you think that they'll, could you repeat that, please?
Pardon?
Can you repeat that?
Do you I mean, you live in the United States, and you go through major media outlets. You can analyze the situation which is now in the United States. Do you think that now there is a bipartisan support among Democrats and Republicans for taking a bold step against Putin? Do you think that now U.S. political elite, governing elite, is ready to terminate all relations with Putin?
Well, they already have, and they're trying to move even further away from his orbit, to the Russian orbit. But I think that the hard part is trying to keep the people focused, right? Because, it'll be harder for politicians to support Ukraine in the future if the American people lose interest in the Ukrainian occupation, in the occupation of Ukraine. I think that's the greatest challenge, because people are already thinking of two really important issues that are in the news these days. Also, Americans are focused on inflation. Americans are talking a lot about gas prices, how high they are. It's summertime, they can't travel, so Americans are quite angry. So I think that's not a good sign for, that won't be good for Ukraine, for Ukrainian support.
Mr. Charpentier, so we are now in the summer. 6 months have passed since the beginning of, almost 6 months have passed since the beginning of the Russian invasion into Ukraine. How can you assess, let's say, the mood in US society? Is still Russian invasion a topic for US society? Will be the topic during the following elections in the Congress? Is still a sensitive topic in the United States?
Less and less so. And, again, I think that there are a lot of, Americans have a short attention span anyway. And so that's one thing. They're always ready to move on to the next big news. Again, we're dealing with a lot of issues of our own. in the news. It's also summertime, people are home less. But people are still talking about Ukraine. It's just not obviously, on the tip of Americans' tongues these days. I mean, it's not something that I hear often, unless, of course, I bring it up. But I think the average, quote unquote, average American is really becoming less and less interested in the conflict. And again, I think it's because of a lot of different issues in their everyday lives. And of course,
Mr. Charpentier, thank you very much for this interview. You always look great. Each time I take an interview from you, I'm trying to guess before actually our interview what will you have fashion, in the following interview. You always make me surprised. So thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Charpentier, prominent novelist from United States. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, sir.